The Helen of Troy meltdown is absolutely sad. And not because every criticism is automatically stupid. I'm not saying that. If someone says, look, I would have preferred Helen to look Greek or more Mediterranean, fine, that's a fair preference. I understand that argument. But that is not what most of this is. Most of this is the same tired YouTube outrage factory, seeing a black actress in a famous role and then pretending that, everybody suddenly cares about the Odyssey and Homerus and Greek heritage and the Bronze Age and accuracy and sacred integrity, of a mythological, let me say that again, a mythological woman who probably most certainly never existed. Let's be honest here. A lot of these people do not care about Helen. They do not care about the Odyssey. They do not care about ancient Greece. They care about this because the actress that was cast as Helen of Troy is black. That's all it is. It's an easy title and just another chance to make the same video that these guys have already made 50 times over. Hollywood is dying. The West is under attack. Woke casting ruined everything. Civilization has fallen because Christopher Nolan casts Lupita. What's her name? Lupita Nyong'o. Nyong'o. Well, there you go. Please, come on, man. Helen of Troy is not a historical person with, a verified passport and a photograph. She's a mythic figure. She's a symbol. She's beauty, desire. She's politics. She's basically war turned into a person. This movie, it's not a biopic, it's mythology. And okay, if we're going to talk about accuracy, okay, let's do it. Then let's actually talk about accuracy. Helen was probably not white, at least not in a way a lot of these people mean white. She probably was not some pale Northern European fantasy woman with blonde hair and blue eyes. Probably not. If Helen is imagined through the ancient Aegean world, you know, she most likely would have been Mediterranean, Greek. So that means she probably would have been very tan and olive skinned, darker featured. That's probably what she would have looked like. So when people scream, Helen was white, what the actual fuck do you really mean? What do you mean? Be very specific here. What do you really mean? Modern American white? British period drama white? Diane Kruger in Troy white? What the fuck do you mean when you say white? Because this isn't history, none of this is. It's modern fantasy of ancient Europe that all these fantasy movies have already sold us, which they did a great job of. I'm not saying they were wrong. I love all these movies. I'm not saying that they were wrong or that everything needs to be, race swapped or anything. Absolutely not. But what the fuck are you actually saying when you say she needs to be white? Now, does that mean Lupita is historically accurate? No, probably not. I mean, if your only standard is, quote unquote, would she look like a Bronze Age Greek woman? Then, yeah, a Greek or Mediterranean actress would probably make more sense, visually speaking. But here's the difference between the actual argument and the grift that all of these people are doing. The actual argument is this: I would have preferred Helen to look more historically Greek. Fine. The grift is this casting is proof that Hollywood hates Western civilization. No, it isn't. It absolutely isn't. Y'all should be embarrassed. And the second one is where the whole meltdown becomes absolutely ridiculous. Because these same people suddenly demanding perfect accuracy are usually very quiet about everything else. Are they demanding the entire movie be spoken in ancient Greek? Well, they should. Are they furious about modern English dialogue? Are they angry about British accents, American faces, perfect teeth, everybody looking shredded as fuck? No. So the accuracy outrage starts exactly where the black actress enters the movie. It's funny how that works, isn't it? And we are still talking about the Odyssey, by the way. A story with gods, monsters, curses, prophecies, sirens, giants, divine punishment, all of that. You know? And sure, the one thing that breaks the realism here is Lupita Nyong'o. That's when everything comes crashing down. It can be serious, man. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's selective outrage, as it is always. And then there's the whole beauty argument, which I don't really understand. It might be one of the dumbest things I've heard recently. People keep saying Helen is supposed to be the most beautiful woman in the world. Okay, according to who? You? Your personal taste? Your mental image from a movie you watched 20 years ago? Troy. Helen's beauty is not just a woman I would personally date. That's such an incredibly shallow reading, you know. Helen is mythic beauty. She's a woman men project desire onto. She's the woman kings use as an excuse for war. She's not just a pretty face, she's reputation. She's this mythical thing, you know. She's a person that everyone turns into a symbol. That's what she represents. And for that, you need presence. And let's be honest, Lupita has presence. You do not have to personally find her the most beautiful woman alive. I do not, but she's far from ugly. She's definitely a pretty woman. Not my type, but she's a pretty woman. Let's be real. And it doesn't matter that I don't think she's the most beautiful woman alive. You know, Nolan is casting a mythic figure in a story about obsession and power and insane things that men do, you know, to convince themselves that, you know, their desire is destiny or something like that. So let's stop acting also like Lupita is some random nobody dragged in off the streets because of politics, because of race swapping or whatever you want to call it. She's a fucking Oscar winning actress. She can act. She has control. She has intensity, you know? She has some of those regal qualities that you want from Helen. She can play someone who feels distant and powerful, untouchable even. You know, she's more than, you know, Helen needs to be more than just a pretty face. And I think this actress can absolutely pull that off. You know? That might actually be better than Helen just being cast as the obvious blonde model. And also, race changing a role doesn't automatically destroy a movie. We know this. We've seen this. Yeah, let's talk about it. Red in The Shawshank Redemption was written as an Irish white man. Morgan Freeman played him, a black actor. And nobody cared, nobody complained. Hmm. Why? Because the performance worked, and that's the only thing that matters at the end of the day. People were complaining about Idris Elba as Heimdall in Thor. Why? Because Heimdall comes from Norse mythology. Yeah, okay, good. And then Idris Elba showed up with more godlike presence than half of the cast. You know, and the whole complaint started to look very silly. And that is the part these outrage channels never want to admit, you know. Sometimes the casting works. Sometimes the actor brings the thing the role actually needs. Sometimes the performance becomes more important than the whole checklist. And maybe Lupita works. Maybe she doesn't. We still haven't seen the movie. You know, you got to be taking a sane position here. You know, but the meltdown before seeing a single performance, it's pathetic, once again, like the whole Black Snape outrage. I mean, you can prefer a more traditional Helen, sure. You can want a Greek actress. You know, you can say the casting does not match your image. Fine, that's normal, I get that. But if your reaction is panic and rage and, you know, 3 monetized videos about, you know, cultural collapse or something, then you're not defending the Odyssey. You're just farming for outrage and clicks. That's what it is, once again. Helen probably wasn't white the way these people imagine. She probably was not black either. She was probably a mythic version of Mediterranean beauty. That's what she probably was. Which means that, you know, the real thing that we need to talk about here is not history has been destroyed. That's not what this means. What we need to talk about is what kind of adaptation is Nolan making, and can Lupita sell the idea of Helen? Helen is an idea. That's the only thing that really matters here. And if she walks into that movie with the kind of presence she's capable of, a lot of these people are going to look exactly like they usually do. Loud and angry, certain, and also extremely wrong.